handful of people arrested in a central Texas city for smuggling people into the country. Why authorities are saying this crime goes underreported.
And that summer heat dome, it's back, and it's going to take a little while for it to get out of the way. Look at what it does to our numbers in your first warning forecast.
And the efforts from President Biden to keep up the support for Ukraine, which GOP leaders are questioning the president's priorities as a possible government shutdown nears.
This week, the Kyle Police Department says it arrested 5 people linked to a human smuggling operation. Police say the suspects brought a group of people across the border illegally, then held them for ransom.
As KXAN's Sarah El-Sheikh explains, if this sounds familiar, this is the second time this has happened in Hays County this month.
A little over a week ago,
police say the men kidnapped at least 10 migrants who were smuggled into the U.S. from Mexico.
KXAN reported about 3 people arrested in a human smuggling and kidnapping investigation by the San Marcos Police Department. Now on Wednesday, yet another case, this time in the city of Kyle.
5 adult suspects holding 5 adults against their will, demanding ransom money from the family members of those 5 victims.
These 5 men are charged with engaging in organized criminal activity and trafficking of persons. In both cases, the suspects are accused of holding people smuggled across the U.S. border for ransom.
Those individuals that they pay are actually the ones that are turning against their customer, the one they're bringing further into the United States.
A victim's family member told police they were asked to send $7,000 electronically for the release of their loved one. Kyle PD tracked down the home and safely freed the victims. The Hays County Sheriff's Office says location plays a factor in why we're seeing this happen in the area.
I-35 runs right through Hays County. The amount of criminal activity that comes up and down I-35 is pretty startling, and human smuggling is all part of that.
It's a crime law enforcement says goes underreported.
Fear of deportation, fear of arrest.
In this case, a victim's relative reached out to Kyle PD for help, something Barnett encourages others to do as well.
Being a victim of crime should take priority over their other concerns. We don't want people to get hurt.
Sarah El-Sheikh, KXAN News.
Kyle PD notified federal agencies about these victims. Law enforcement now has their information and addresses where they plan to be in case the DA's office needs to reach out to them about this case.
Well, today, Texas First Lady Cecilia Abbott joined the Texas Advocacy Project to talk about how to better address human trafficking. She joined the group and Texas business leaders to discuss how domestic violence, human trafficking, and other power-based abuses impact their business and the corporate community. The First Lady highlighted House Bill 2313 that went into effect at the beginning of the month. That law requires rideshare drivers to go through training to know how to spot the signs of human trafficking, but she says everyone should be aware.
I believe that if we continue to work together to protect and defend the victims of human trafficking, we can eradicate this heinous crime once and for all.
And another bill that became law on September 1st is Senate Bill 1527. That law increases penalties for traffickers that use excessive force. It also enhances child pornography sentences, flags driver licenses of people convicted of human trafficking, and adds protections for victims with disabilities.
Some congressional lawmakers are asking the Biden administration to audit the way Texas is dealing with its Medicaid program. Earlier this year, we told you about whistleblowers citing problems with the system, leading to people getting erroneously kicked off the program and delays in processing others. In a letter to the Biden administration, Central Texas Congressman Lloyd Doggett asked for any terminations to be put on pause until an audit can be done. The letter says nearly 1 million Texans have lost access to doctors and medication since April, when the state had to overhaul its system because a COVID-era policy allowing people to stay on Medicaid expired.
There's no reason why thousands of additional pregnant women, children, individuals with disabilities should be denied access to a family physician until we're sure these problems are corrected.
Today, we asked the Texas Health and Human Services Commission for a response to those whistleblowers' claims and Doggett's letter. They say they will look into it.
Well, tonight, another Central Texas congressman is hosting an event in D.C. to support children with cancer. Congressman Mike McCall is hosting the Childhood Cancer caucus his 14th annual Golden Toast. McCall and his caucus introduced legislation to give kids access to more treatments in clinical trials, which right now are reserved for adults.
Yeah, the kids are really left out of the equation. It was all about adult cancer research, everything, all the treatments and therapies were focused on adults and not on the children. And I thought that was just, quite frankly, wrong.
And the legislation has just been reintroduced after efforts to get it passed last year stalled.
First warning weather with meteorologist Kristen Curry.
Chief Meteorologist David Yeomans will be back next week, but let's get you to your forecast tonight because we've got some things to talk about. The heat, the humidity, and then eventually some rain. Live look outside our River City Grill Highland Furniture camera there out in Marble Falls. Plenty of clear sky. Saw a lot of sunshine between this morning and now, and our temperatures reflect that, unfortunately. We're seeing 90s, if not even some low 100s. Lano, you're my hot spot. 100 degrees at this hour, 98 in Austin. We still have 90s out in our eastern counties. But here's the thing. It's not even just the heat. We're looking at dew points here, and this gives us a better estimate of the moisture that's sitting on top of us. Anything above 60 degrees, you notice. Anything above 70 degrees, you're wearing it. It is sticky. It is uncomfortable. It is just miserable, especially by September standards. July, meh. We deal with it. September, Temperatures are going to take a little while to cool down, too. 90s for now. We'll go 80s by the time we hit 9 o'clock. We'll wake up to the 70s once we get into tomorrow morning. We are flirting with 100 for the next several days, so something that we're going to be keeping a very close eye on. That total of 78 days might change in the next few afternoons. Uncomfortable heat indices, but eventually some relief on the way next week. We'll talk more about it the next time I see you.
All right, Kristen, thank you very much. President Biden met with world leaders today at the United Nations General Assembly, including Israel's prime minister, amid questions over the state of democracy in the longtime ally.
And at the same time, Biden is working to convince world leaders to keep the faith with Ukraine. Here's NBC's Alice Barr.
Please have a seat.
President Biden today tackling global challenges on multiple fronts at the United Nations General Assembly in New York, sitting down with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, reaffirming the historic alliance despite concerns over a proposal to curb the Israeli Supreme Court's powers that critics say threatens democracy.
So upholding democratic values that lie at the heart of our partnership, including checks and balances in our systems.
President Biden also meeting with the leader of Brazil, another democracy at a crossroads, just as Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky made an urgent plea to save democracy in his nation.
Ukrainian soldiers now are doing, at the expense of their blood, what the UN Security Council should do by its voting.
President Zelensky scolding the UN Security Council for not doing more to punish Russia as support for funding Ukraine's fight begins to falter. Zelensky is preparing to head to Washington to make his appeal directly to lawmakers to grant President Biden's request for billions more in aid. House Republicans questioning the president's priorities.
I've watched the president do a supplemental that's concerned about Ukraine and concerned about disasters, but he avoids the border.
That tension central to the standoff over government funding as GOP members dig in over conservative policy provisions and steep spending cuts. The threat of a government shutdown growing more real by the day. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
Day 6 of the United Auto Workers strike. How many more employees have been laid off?
Plus, how students are doing after a pretty serious school bus crash in Houston.
And a teenage girl claims to find a phone taped to a toilet on a plane. Who was escorted off the aircraft because of it? 10 children and 2 adults went to the hospital today after a Houston Independent School District bus got in a crash, causing it to flip on its side. Police say the crash happened around 6:45 in the morning as the bus was going to school. 2 additional vehicles were involved. Good news, though, everyone is expected to be okay.
The FBI is investigating after a 14-year-old girl says an American Airlines employee tried to record her inside an aircraft lavatory. Now, this is what she says she found on the toilet. It looks like a phone taped behind an out-of-order sign on the seat. This happened earlier this month on a flight from Charlotte to Boston. The girl says she was told by a male member of the crew to use the first-class bathroom. She says the crew member entered just before her, told her the seat was broken but not to worry about it, and then re-entered the bathroom after she left. That's according to a family statement. Police officers met the plane at the gates and escorted a flight attendant off of the aircraft. American Airlines says it takes the matter very seriously and is cooperating with law enforcement.
A look at the year ahead for Project Connect, where funding is coming from and when we'll know how these projects impact the environment.
Well, so far this year, we have seen 78 days of triple-digit heat. For perspective, in a normal year, we average less than 30. Of those 78, 41 were 105 or hotter. Could these numbers change in the days ahead? There is a possibility, and we'll talk more about it after the break.
3 Georgia Republicans who falsely claimed to be electors for former President Donald Trump appeared in court today.
They argued to have their cases moved from state to federal court. NBC's Blaine Alexander has the details from Atlanta.
Well, the hearing was less than 3 hours long inside the federal courthouse here behind me in Atlanta. The judge, Judge Jones, heard arguments from the attorneys for 3 of the Fulton County defendants. That would be Sean Still, David Schaefer, and Kathy Latham. All 3 of them are among the so-called fake Georgia electors. Now, that's what they're being charged with by Fulton County DA Fonnie Willis. They're arguing, though, they should have their cases removed from state court to federal court. They say that they were acting as quote-unquote contingent electors and therefore were acting in a federal capacity. Now, the judge did not issue a ruling today. It said that it will be coming as soon as possible. But of course, this is the same judge that heard the arguments from the attorneys for Mark Meadows, who also argued to remove his case to federal court because he was acting as the chief of staff for then President Trump. Mark Meadows at the time came down, testified for nearly 4 hours, and the judge still denied that request. Now, a number of legal experts say that he, of course, had the strongest cases of those who wanted removal to federal court. So certainly it does not bode well for these 3 co-defendants as well. All 3 of them waived their appearance today, and the hearing did not have any witnesses. Back to you.
First warning weather with meteorologist Kristen Curry.
Let's start with a live look outside. Gorgeous Friday, gorgeous July-like day at the end of September. Unfortunately, with the heat, Whittlesey Landscape Supplies weather camera up in Liberty Hill, not a cloud in sight. Most of us, in fact, are cloudless at this hour. 98 degrees currently at downtown. South winds less than 10, but ooh, look at that feels like temperature. Even just a little bit of humidity brings us over the top with those heat indices. Our air quality is moderate for today. We're likely going to see it moderate again tomorrow for some particulate matter and ozone, but pretty normal to see that with this weather pattern. We do not have anything in the way of air quality alerts in effect. Tonight we'll get down to 75, south winds 5 to 15 miles per hour, building cloud cover overnight into tomorrow. That's probably going to be one of the main differences you'll notice between what we've got tomorrow and what we saw today, is the fact that the morning clouds will be more widespread, a little thicker. Maybe we squeeze out a couple spots of drizzle, but less than 10% chance and no meaningful rain expected. High getting back to 99 tomorrow. With the humidity, going to feel just as miserable as what it feels like outside now, unfortunately. Look at these feels like temperatures for tomorrow. Upper 90s to low 100s. Again, the feels like temperature is a little worse east of I-35 since y'all are closer to the Gulf of Mexico. That's where this moisture is coming from. And then Friday, we do it all over again. Upper 90s to low 100s. It's what it's going to feel like even in the shade. So something to keep in mind for high school football games for tomorrow night. And then again, as we get into Friday night, our big game of the week, which you can watch live on KBVO. This is going to be Belton versus Pflugerville up at Gupton Stadium in Cedar Park. And you can see those temperatures not going to be very friendly. So make sure you're keeping an eye on yourself. And again, we'll be watching the players, the staff out there battling these hot conditions, which should be long gone by now. 90 is actually our average. So those temperatures should be running about 8 to 10 degrees cooler, but they're not yet. Why do I say yet? I think by the time we hit next week, we've got something working for us. Between now and this weekend, really nothing. I was hoping for a spot shower or 2 coming in Friday out from North Texas, but my confidence in that is low. My confidence in this cold front, though, much, much higher. By Monday, cold front comes in. The bulk of this storm system actually stays north, but that's okay because there's going to be a severe weather threat tied to it, and most of that will stay north as well. So this front coming in Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday is likely going to bring us our best looking rain chance that we've had in quite some time. Now, right now, not everybody's going to get wet, but it looks like in general our rainfall totals will be anywhere from about 3/4 of an inch to maybe an inch on the higher side. We'll have isolated pockets of more, sure, but this is more of just kind of a nice little backyard watering and not necessarily a drought busting kind of rain. But we can't be picky coming off the summer we had. So let's put it together for you. 70 forecasts tonight, 70s, tomorrow 90s. We re-rack, do it all over again on Friday. Again, that 10% chance is if and only if some storms from North Texas get pushed south here. It will not impact the majority of us. We officially flipped to fall 1:50 a.m. on Saturday. Feels maybe a little bit more like fall, pumpkin spice weather, kind of a stretch here since we're still going to be pushing 90s behind the front. 93 Monday with that 50% chance of rain. Again, at this point, not anticipating severe weather, but the rain chances will dribble into the middle of the week, and your overnight lows get a little cooler too, waking up to 60s and 70s by the start of our next work week.
Kristen, thank you so much. Today, Project Connect leaders laid out their plans for the next year of work to bring light rail to Austin. Now, the route will eventually run from central Austin to the southeast part of the city, close to the airport. Austin Transit Partnership leaders told KXAN they're beginning work on a multi-year federal funding process with the Federal Transit Administration. They've estimated roughly half the costs of the light rail will come from the federal government. Project leaders are also working toward the overview of the potential impacts of the route on the surrounding environment and neighbors.
We're talking about a transformative project that's going to come to Austin, something that's going to have great benefit, great value, but we do recognize there certainly are going to be some potential impacts throughout the community.
Officials expect a draft environmental impact statement to be done in 2025. Digital reporter Kelsey Thompson has more on what that review will entail and the funding process online at KXAN.com.
A key ingredient in your ham and cheese sandwich is being recalled. Why Kraft is asking you not to eat some of its iconic singles slices.
Right now, the government now targeting company executives in its legal complaint against Amazon and how it allegedly tricked customers into signing up for Prime. And an accused murderer on the run after an apparent mistake sets him free on Nightly News.
A federal lawsuit has been filed against West Point, claiming the military academy improperly uses race and ethnicity as factors in admissions. Now, the suit was filed by the same group that took Harvard and UNC to court to challenge their admissions policies, which then led to a Supreme Court decision that struck down affirmative action in college admissions. That ruling, however, did not cover West Point and the nation's other military academies. The current lawsuit claims West Point is violating the Constitution. The Academy said in a statement it does not comment on ongoing litigation.
Today, Detroit-based automaker Stellantis announced hundreds of workers will be temporarily laid off at facilities in Ohio and Indiana due to this strike. It is now on its 6th day. Some United Auto Workers members who are still working could be asked to join the strike sometime soon if negotiations don't make serious progress by noon on Friday. Today, GM announced work at a plant in Kansas has stopped altogether due to supply issues because of the strike. The plant has about 2,000 employees that are now out of work. The sticking points at the negotiating table continue to be over wages, cost of living adjustments, and retirement benefits.
Well, meantime, negotiations to end the Hollywood writers' strike are back on. The Writers Guild of America says the union resumed negotiations with Hollywood studios today. The union told its members to continue picketing, though, as the talks resume. A spokesperson for the studios confirmed the talks, but no further comments. Dual writers and actors strikes have halted production of several big-name shows and films. The Actors Union has not yet indicated when it might return to the negotiating table.
Kraft Heinz is recalling nearly 84,000 cases of its Singles American cheese due to possible packaging issues. Now, the company is saying one of their wrapping machines encountered an issue which may have allowed a thin strip of film to remain on a slice after the wrapper is removed. The remaining strip poses a choking hazard. Kraft Heinz says it received 6 complaints from customers who say they choked or gagged as a result. The recall includes slices with a best when used date of January 10th, 2024, through January 27th, 2024. If you have those, return them to your grocery store for an exchange or refund.
All right, well, coming up tonight on KXAN, it's America's Got Talent at 7, followed by back-to-back episodes of Night Court at 8, Chicago PD at 9, and then we're back at 10 o'clock.
And you can join us an hour earlier for KXAN News at 9 on CW Austin, and here's where to find us.